the purpose, the premise of the pumpkin plan is that you'd go to the county fair and see these, amazing, huge pumpkins, and how the farmers got to those were, and you think about this as I'm talking about your database, how the farmers got to that is they'd start off with maybe 2 rows of pumpkins, and they would feed and weed and water, and they would notice that, 1 or 2 pumpkins on each vine was growing better than the others. And so they would cut off all the other pumpkins so that all the nutrients could go into the 1 or 2 pumpkins that were growing, and then they get down to 1 per vine. And they always had more than 1 vine because in case something happened. But the idea is that you have your database and you really dig down deep. And one of the things I was talking about this morning is I'm getting very intentional about my business this year. And I spent some time in December interviewing some past clients, interviewing some people that I know. And I wanted to find out from them what would create the best real estate experience they could ever have and what some of their concerns were. And interestingly enough, I found out from several people that there were some concerns around what moving does to their children and how stressful it is for their children. And so it's led me to believe that I need to create a children's guide too, right? Not just the VIP guide for sellers or buyers, but I need to create the children's guide to moving too. And there's probably already one out there that I can tweak. But anyway, so as you're engaging in these real estate conversations, I think my point is to always ask questions. And in the I got a little off topic, but in the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book, it talks about leverage and how to, and Bill was saying that this morning that, there are a lot of people out there that want that job, that can do social media and that can do, dot the I's and cross the T's. And you get lucky if you find one, but you can set out intentionally to find one as well. And that's a whole process. But I know we're here to role play. Does anybody have any comments about that before we go on? So I would say if you've got clients or friends, and this was the other point. This is from the pumpkin plan, but this was the point that when have you ever had, if somebody sold you insurance, and Bill brought this up, I thought it was so true. When has anyone ever sold you insurance and called you to say, how could I improve my business, my service to you? How could I really want to I'm really trying to get intentional about my business and I want to make it the best it can be. What does that look like for you? What could I improve on and what would make it a better experience for you? That doesn't happen. So when you're that agent that does that, I can tell you the responses from the people I called were like, at first they were kind of like, what are you doing? And then they were like, oh, and then they really got into it and really started sharing. And I had to ask them, like, well, what about that's important to you? Because I'd get, well, we want it to be not so, we want moving to be not so stressful. And I go, well, talk to me about the stress. What exact points of stress? What about that would, could be improved? How would it be less stressful? I had to really dig deep because at first they didn't want to get into it too much, but then after a while they got really engaged. And then I just sent everybody a Starbucks coffee gift card to thank them. But anyway, that's just a little thing that was left over from PC2 this morning. I thought I'd share with you. Anybody have any comments or anything they want to share before we get into role play? Okay, quiet group this morning. Who would like to be the first to raise their hand to say, I will role play? Delisa?
I'm sorry, my husband. No, not this morning. I just want to listen in.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm gonna put myself on mute.
Okay.
I can role play with you.
Oh, thank you. Okay. What do we want? What would anybody like to role play? What would you like to role play about?
I have one. This is Lorinda. I'm not comfortable with signing the BBA.
Okay. Pam, you want to be the agent or do you want me to?
Why don't you be the agent?
Okay. Ring, ring.
Hello?
Hey Pam, this is Candace Story. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Fantastic. I am so excited to be going on this home buying journey with you. There are a couple of things we need to talk about before we get going on things. Is this a good time for you?
Yes.
Great. Well, I wanted to send over some disclosures for you, some consumer information pieces. They're for your review. I hope you'll take time to read them because there's some really good information in there. One of those pieces is the ABCs of agency, which talks about how I can represent you and what Georgia law states about that. So there's an agreement that we signed called the BBA. And now, guys, I'm pausing here. I've heard different people say it different ways. I have one friend who's got this big personality. I mean, he could sign a wall up for anything. I mean, truly, he could talk to a wall and the wall would be like, I love you. And he'll say, this basically just means you're not going to cheat on me and I'm not going to cheat on you. That's what he says. Gets it signed every time, makes it fun. So back to what I would say is, so I'm going to send over this buyer agency agreement and we can go through what it means. And if you have any questions, just let me know. But I do need to get that signed before we can get going on. In case we find a home today, we want to have everything possibly done up beforehand so that you can compete in our competitive market. How does that sound, Pam?
Well, sure. I'll look it over and let you know if I have any questions about it.
Yep. Okay. Okay. So let's set up a time like at about, 10 o'clock this morning.
Sure, that'll work.
Okay. And excuse me, guys, I should have said 10 o'clock this morning or 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. But I know she's in a hurry. That's my premise here. So then what I do is I just go over and I just say, this just says that in order for me to represent you and give you, everything that I can give you, I have to have this agreement signed. I also would like to send you the purchase and sale agreement so that in case there's any questions about that, you have that at the same time. How does that sound, Pam?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay. So then it'd just be a matter of this has to be signed. It's not that big a deal. I don't always get it signed before I put somebody in the car. Well, I don't put people in the car anymore. People don't do that, but I don't always get it signed the first time. Sometimes I need to develop the relationship a little bit. Like I've got somebody who's moving here in February from, where she's moving from, Pennsylvania. And we've only talked on the phone a couple of times. So I've mentioned it to her that it's something that we'll need just to prepare her, but I haven't talked about it much more than anything like that. But I have sent her all the consumer disclosures, including the ABCs of agency, and I've got a call with her today to go over some of those things. So anyway, when she gets here, I'll have that piece of paper for her to sign.
And also, I just want to add,
Yes, please.
I have a sit down meeting with people. Candace mentioned doing it over the phone here, and that's fine, whatever works for you and them. I have a sit down meeting with them. I usually meet them someplace like, Panera, or I'm not a Starbucks fan because I'm not a coffee drinker, but I'll meet them at Starbucks, whatever. And we'll go over some, all of this, and that's when I present it, and I talk to them about. I like your thing, Candace, as far as talking about the brochure with the ABCs of agency.
Mm-hmm.
I tell them, I just tell them this is required by Georgia law for me to give you the best representation possible.
Love that.
And, if it's not signed, I can only basically open the door and read what is on, what you can find on the internet. However, once we have this signed, I'm looking out for your best interests. And I'm a talker, and I give advice. That's just me. My kids are like, Mom, we don't need your advice. They're in their 20s, so they think they know everything. But, I do that. That's just my personality. So I have to have it signed, to protect everyone. But I tell them, by having it signed, I can tell you if I notice anything that I see that's unusual about this home, or if there's any issues about it, but I can advise you. Without it signed, I can't advise you.
Yeah.
And I've only had one couple, and I had shown them, I showed them 2 homes without having it signed. And then I was like, we need to have this sign. And he emailed me and says, well, we don't feel comfortable signing it. We hope you understand. And I emailed him back and said, best wishes with your home search. Because
Yeah, and
I'm
there's,
not showing it without it being signed.
yeah, I agree with, I agree. I won't go too far without it because you can't, I mean, for compliance sake, but one of the things that in the past that I've used, if somebody is hesitant, is I'll say, I want you to notice at the top, it said buyer agency agreement. It does not say contract. It is an agreement between the two of us that we will be working with each other exclusively. However, that can be terminated at any time if you feel like we're not a good fit, or I feel like we're not a good fit, or you feel like, you know, we've had a discussion about things and things aren't getting resolved. And I'll say, knock on wood, I've never had that happen, but I don't want you to feel trapped into working with anybody because it is an agreement. And that's something
That's excellent.
and people will be like, oh, okay, you know, so.
And I will say, it took me a while to get to the point of, I'm not going to work with you if you don't sign this.
Yeah.
But it,
Pam,
you know,
is that your standard, Pam? That if you show two homes that you want, and you don't have a buyer brokerage agreement signed, then you will just pretty much cut ties.
yes. And in those two homes, what I do is I say to them, okay, this first home, I will show you without the buyer brokerage agreement, what I can do.
But they have a pre-approval.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. And that's another one of my standards. I don't show people homes without getting pre-approved.
That is a must.
And, you know, if they want to go to somebody else, fine. But to me, that just tells me how ready they are. And I explained to them, I said, look, this business, especially now, moves very quickly. You have a lot of decisions to make, not just, oh, I'm going to buy this home, but then once you go under contract, we get an inspection and we have to decide what things we're going to ask for to be repaired. And we have to do some research on that sometimes. And I say, you know, you have to be pre-approved because you need to put in an offer very quickly. And we don't always have time to wait for you to get pre-approved. So the first step is getting pre-approved. And that way we cannot send an offer without the pre-approval. I tell them that. I said, we can't, no one will accept it. And so the first step is getting pre-approved. And then after that, you know, we'll be looking, and I'll tell them, you know, while they're getting their financials together, I'll send you, I send you information. You can look at the houses, and they usually start seeing how quickly things go under contract. So they realize they have to.
Exactly. Yeah, I like that. And I think around that is the mindset of you can't really help them unless you guide and direct. And you know that you have to have the pre-approval and you have to have the BBA in order to go to contract. So when your mindset is around that, that's helpful to them and that allows you to do the best you can do. I think that changes it all up and makes it, instead of, you know, being afraid to ask for it, it makes it something that you're doing for them so that you can represent them. So I think if you can change your mindset around it to that, it'll help you as well. I think we make, and I know I did this too, so I'm not judging, but I think I made it scarier than it was. It was like this big hurdle I had to overcome in order to work with somebody. And what I found over the years is it's really not. It's just it's like Pam said, I've never really had anybody that wouldn't sign it that I can even remember. So it's just not that big. It's not that big a hurdle unless you make it one in your mind. Does that make sense?
And like I said, I have the two that I will show them. And the first one, I treat them as a customer. And the second one, I treat them as a client. So I want them to, they will see the difference in what I can do and how I can, how I can advise them.
I love that. And I also, in as many cases as possible, will have a sit-down consultation. And that goes something like, let's meet, like you said, it doesn't matter to me where we meet, just someplace where it's neutral and we can get, talk without too much background noise. But one of the things I'll say is, I know you really are here to see homes. we're going to do that as fast as possible, but there's some things that we need to talk about so that you have enough information to make a really great decision. And then that's when I sometimes will talk, well, that's not sometimes, that's when I'll talk about the BBA, and that's when I'll talk about pre-approval. But they've got their pre-approval before we sit down. I want to just confirm that. That's one of the first questions I ask them on that buyer intake form. That's their level of motivation.
Exactly.
And if they
we
don't,
can't be more motivated than they are.
yeah. And if they don't know, if they're like, they're just brand new and they don't know what the process is, then you can give them direction about the lenders. You can say, we've got some great lenders who can help you. They'll answer all your questions. That's their area of expertise. So let me put you in touch with people who will take care of you. How about that?
Right. And I tell them, they're welcome to use any lender that they want, that here are ones I recommend, because I know that they will answer all of your questions. They will respond to you and to me, which is very important. And I say, and if there's ever an issue, I know where they live. I can go, I say, I can go to their house and wring their neck if I need to. And we all laugh,
Yeah.
Because I do know where they live.
Yeah. And I have I tell people, some of you have heard me say this before, but I have 5 criteria for a lender. 1, they need to be local because real estate is hyper local. 2, and that sometimes will weed out Quicken and Lending Tree and some of the ones that you've heard, some good and some nightmares. But I'll say number 1 is they have to be local. Number 2, they have to have competitive rates. Number 3, they have to be responsive. I really would like to see an update regularly without us having to chase them down. And the reason for that is because underwriting can be a stressful time for buyers. They pretty sure they're okay, but there's always doubt. It's kind of like when you get pulled over by a policeman, you automatically feel guilty even if you weren't doing anything. It's that same kind of stress that some people have. So 1 is they're local, 2, competitive rates, 3, responsive, 4 is that what is my 4th one? No, 3 is that they're responsive, that if they don't answer their phone, they'll text or call back in a timely manner. 4 is that they give us updates regularly. And 5 is that they're available at the closing. Even if they can't be at the closing, they're available in case there's a funding issue. Those are my 5 criteria for lenders. And once you say that, most of the time people are like, well, who's that? And then you can direct them to people that will get the job done for them.
Right. And I tell them that all of these people get us to closing, and that's the most important thing. But I also, back to your thing about underwriting, your point about underwriting, Candace, I tell people, I say, I try to set that expectation of what the lenders expect, that, like you said, they've already talked to the lender, so they know the paperwork. And I go over and tell them, now right before closing, they will want, especially if we're going to have a longer closing, not, it's not within 30 days. I said, they will want to see all of this information again. I said, and they will call your employer and they will run your credit check the morning of closing. I said, but just when you think you've given that lender everything you could possibly give them, they ask for one more thing. And I laugh, and they usually laugh at that. I said, but we just have to remember, you're borrowing a lot of money. So they're going to do a deep dive into your finances to make sure they're going to get paid back.
And that's a good time to say, and by the way, between now and when you have the keys in your hand and all the paperwork signed, is not the time to do anything to your credit, but improve it. And I have heard a horror story of somebody. In fact, this just happened. Oh, I think I'm not going to name names, but anyway, I'll tell a different story. But there was a fella who was so excited about his new house, he went out and bought a whole bunch of furniture on credit and then couldn't close on his house.
Yeah, I have a list that I use in my buyer's consultation, and it's called, and anybody can Google it and find it. It's called the 10 Commandments. What is it? The 10 Commandments when buying a house.
Yeah.
And one of them is don't buy a car or you might be living in it. And so I go over all of those with them to make sure they understand that. And I've only had one person that did not get to closing, lost his earnest money. and everything. And it's because he was not paying attention when we were talking. And I realized after this, I'm like, okay, I'm going to just pause and wait until I have his attention. He was on his phone constantly while I was talking to him. And he went to Las Vegas and gambled his down payment and lost. And I specifically said to him before he left, when I found out he was going to Las Vegas, I said, now don't gamble any of the money you need for your closing.
Yeah,
You can't fix stupid.
Here, I'll post this up here so you can see it, because thank you for that reminder. That is it's a great one to have in your
The Ten
buyer
Commandments.
packet. Yeah. Let me see if I can share
Candace,
this.
what was the first thing for lenders? The first,
Look, I
before
like a lender to be local. I want them to know
Local.
what's going on in the
Okay.
local market.
Thank you.
Yes, yes. And on that, I had a lender insistent upon using Quicken, and he was buying a new home, and he and I both told them, the agent, the new home agent said, I've never had one of their loans close on time. And I said, yeah, it's really, I told her, I said, it's really a gamble. You never know if you will or not, because you're just another person to them. Whereas when you go with lenders that we know, us agents know, they want more of our business. So they're going to do a good job for our clients. And sure enough, when it got to the end and they couldn't close for 4 more days for some policy that Quicken had, they didn't complain one bit. They went and found an Airbnb to live in for those 4 days when they were out of their house, out of the one house they were selling and into the one they're buying.
And and as a listing agent, it's not always easy, but I always try and get the commitment on if there's a mortgage on whatever loan exhibit they're using, to name the lender. And I learned this the hard way, because we were past due diligence, and I was representing the seller, and the buyer wanted to change. He was getting a VA loan and he wanted to change lenders, and he changed to a big box lender. And my clients, once we got through due diligence, had put a contract on a home that was contingent upon them closing on the date that we had identified, and the closing was delayed by and then the agent was new and went on vacation and didn't have anybody to do his business, and he was river rafting, and I couldn't get in touch with him. It was a nightmare. But they ended up having to rent a place for 3 weeks because we were waiting for that closing. And their only choice was to cancel the contract or go forward with it. And they were already under contract with this home, and they loved it. So they endured it, but it cost them probably about, it cost them probably about $9,000 extra. They were not happy. In fact, I talked to the agent's broker, and I had to talk them out of writing him a scathing review on the internet because he was so brand new. I was like,
well, and to your point, as far as, so what you now as a listing agent require that section on the loan agreement to be filled out
when
you're getting a loan through?
When they send a pre-approval, I'll say, could you just fill in that lender's name on the loan exhibit, please?
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10 in this market, they'll do it.
Right. Yeah. And as an agent, I, representing buyers, I don't fill it out, but if the listing agent asks us to, I will. Exactly.
Because you want your buyer to have that, in case they get an incredible rate. But, the times that it's hard to control that are when you have, like this buyer that's coming from Pennsylvania. She works for a large media company, and they've got a credit union. So her loan will be through the credit union, and I have no experience with them. It makes me a little nervous. But that's where she can get a better rate, and that's important to her. So I'll make sure she has the other lenders to compare with. I'll make sure she at least does that for herself. But
what did you say you will not fill out unless they ask you to?
On the conventional loan or the FHA loan, or most of the loan exhibits, there's a place where it says approved lenders, and most of the time you'll see that left blank. But as a listing agent, I want to see that filled in, because I want to know that if they can't get the loan from that lender, it's just a little layer of protection. I mean,
Yeah, because I was in a Zoom yesterday and they were talking about contracts. And the woman said that there was an agent who said that she doesn't fill out, she leave that blank. And the woman who was teaching the class said, no, you must put that in, even if it doesn't go through, but you still must put it in there.
well,
I don't think that's correct. Do you,
Yeah.
Candace?
no, technically, you're not supposed to leave blank spaces on a contract on any forms or exhibits, but there's some accepted practices that I don't think anybody's.
I believe she said I could be wrong, but I was certain she said that because there was, yeah, okay.
Well, here's the thing,
Yeah.
that if you put a name of a lender in that section, if you're going to get, and you're representing the buyer, if you're going to get a loan denial letter, it has to come from that lender.
Okay.
You know, for it to be valid with this contract. If you don't fill that section out, the loan denial letter can come from any lender.
Got it. Okay.
Tracy, I was in that class yesterday and she did say, Fiona did say that.
Did she? Okay.
Yeah, she did say that. That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And from a listing agent's perspective, when you see that on the when you see that lender, there's usually an email or a phone number attached sometimes, and you can actually reach out to that lender and just inquire about that buyer and see how qualified they are. Open up a line of communication, because communication is key with all parties that are involved in the transaction, from the buyer side, seller side, the lending side as well, and even through the attorneys. That's why a lot of times it's good too with a transaction coordinator, because they'll actually open up that line of communication too, and it makes you look like you're on a higher plateau. Because I've reached out to a lot of lenders just to find out if the client was fully underwritten like they said, if they're far along, so we don't have to, my seller doesn't have to wait a long period of time.
That's a great point, Anthony. Great point. And when you're a listing agent, that should be on your list of things to do as you're evaluating offers, is to, that's why you don't want to, that's why, especially in our market, you want to give yourself enough time. Like, don't say we'll be deciding on contracts on Sunday night, say Monday night, so you have a chance to contact the lenders and see how viable the clients are if you're not getting cash offers. So great point, Anthony. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah,
Candace, I have a question.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, Anthony, go ahead and finish.
Yeah, that was just to piggyback off of that. Sometimes they'll give you that limit offer deadline, and it'll fall on like a Saturday or a Sunday. I try to go back on that and reach out to the buyer's agent and just say, hey, I see that you put here Saturday or Sunday. I'd like to reach out to the lender just to kind of talk to the lender, just get some information. Can we flip that to at least Monday at noon instead of Sunday at noon? Fortunately, I had one instance where I did reach out to the agent, and she was like, oh no, the lender's available 24/7. He's always accessible. Reach out to him. And it was Saturday at noon. And on the third ring, the lender actually picked up, and I vetted the lender, and yeah, he was legit, and it was a great VA transaction. So you can get those that if they say, well, call them now, they're available, then great, pick up the phone and contact them. If not, then just try to wiggle with it.
Candace, I have a question. We had some communication on the last deal that I had on the table. And can you give us just some things in reference to what you're looking at when it comes to the proof of funding letters? I had a situation where they sent me a proof of funding, and it was subject to an appraisal and underwriting, and it was an all cash deal. And I just want to know some things to look for when it comes to those proof of funding, because I don't think some of them are as valid as we think, or as valid as the paper is on.
Yeah, so this is kind of my process. When I get an offer, I'll look up the agent. I look up to see number of transactions they've done. Not that that's a whole indication, because a lot of agents have slowed down the past couple of years. Some agents have ramped up, but I just want to see overall in the past 5 years, unless they're brand new, how many transactions they've done. I'll get on their social media, kind of see who they are. This is if I have time. And then when I get that proof of funds, like if that's an all cash deal, but it's subject to that, well, that sounds a little bit like a hard money lender, right?
Right.
So then you want to vet who it's from, and you can research sometimes those hard money lenders, not always. Sometimes it's just sometimes it is what it is. But if you're at all uncomfortable about it and you have other choices, go with your other choices. If that's your only deal on the table, do your best to make it work, I would say. Pam, you have anything to add to that?
No, I think you said it well.
Actually work with and I just did a hard money loan in the exact same way. If they do the all cash exhibit, they actually added the check line for it to be hard money now. I think being that it's so common now, so you can actually look at the all cash exhibit and make sure which box is checked. If not, then you can make sure that the agent go back and check the box that says that it's a hard money loan.
Okay. Thank you, Markia. Thanks. Yep. Anybody have anything else they'd like to talk about? You want me to scroll down this list? This is good. Thou shalt not use credit cards excessively or let current accounts fall behind. Thou shalt not spend money you have set aside for closing. Thou shalt not omit debts or liabilities from your loan application. Thou shalt not buy furniture on credit. Thou shalt not originate any inquiries into your credit. Thou shalt not make large deposits without checking with your loan officer. Thou shalt not change bank accounts. Thou shalt not co-sign a loan for anyone. Oh, and what's the first one? Thou shalt not change jobs or become self-employed or quit your job. Thou shalt not buy a car, truck, or van. You may be living in it. I think that's excellent. Thank you for that reminder, Pam. All right, time for one things. Tracy, you're top on my list. What's your one thing for today?
I have to jump on this orientation for the Atlanta Realtors Association. And then I'll make some calls.
Excellent. Anthony?
Basically, I'm going to be following up with a potential referral lead down in Florida and one up in New York. That's what I'm going to be focusing on today, making that call.
Markia? I think you're on mute. There you go.
I am going to be setting up my appointments for next week for consultations to meet my goal of 5 per week.
Excellent. Leslie?
I'm going to be calling, I'm trying to set up ways to contact people in neighborhoods that I've sold with, and trying to see how I can make the connection with some of the people in the neighborhoods.
Excellent. Pam?
I'm going to finish addressing my Happy New Year's cards so I can send those out.
Love that. I love that. You know, I have to say, I do love, I send out Christmas cards, but for years and years, we sent out New Year's cards because they come at a time when all the holidays are over and everybody's like, oh, one more little hurrah. I love that. Okay, well, my one thing for today is I'm going to be talking with this buyer who's coming and setting up some strategies for her for when she comes to visit, and say prayers that there are homes on the market. That's it. Anybody have anything else they want to share before we go? Thank you all for being here. As Bill always says, I am so grateful for you. I really am. You all are just amazing people, and I so appreciate you being here in the morning. And it'll be in Bill's room on Monday morning. So I hope everybody has an awesome weekend. Call if you need anything, okay?
Have a great weekend.
Have a great
Thank you,
weekend.
everybody.
Bye-bye.
Great weekend, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.